This is Sarah McLaughlin, and you are watching the TV Writer Podcast.
Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web. My name's Gray Jones, and I want to welcome you to the TV Writer Podcast, partner of Script Magazine, episode 45 for Friday, December 16th, 2011. Well, today I'm so excited to bring you an interview with writer and script consultant Sarah McLaughlin. Sarah McLaughlin has written for That 70's Show, for South Park, and Drop Dead Diva, among others. And also she runs the website tvscriptdoctor.com, where she does script consulting for television and features. And you would do well to check out the site. She's got a great blog there and also a description of the features that she offers to TV writers who want to be, and also actually existing TV writers as well. Sarah has also worked as a script evaluator and creative consultant for the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop and the Disney ABC Writers Fellowship. And in her interview, she has lots of great wisdom about submitting your writing for those fellowship programs. And you can also follow her on Twitter at TV Script Doctor. Pretty easy to remember. Before we get to the interview, just a couple of news items. One of them is a reminder of your homework. Don't forget to read Bite-Sized Television by Ross Brown. You can get that at the tvwriterpodcast.com site, and it's pretty inexpensive. A great book. And read that over the holidays. Submit your questions for Ross Brown's interview by January 1st, and you just might win an insider's guide to TV's hottest market, reality TV, by Troy DeVold. Troy, of course, will be on the podcast soon, so be good to buy that book anyway and get your questions in for that one. You know what? There's going to be another contest for that one too. Won't talk about that yet, but there will be. There won't be any video tips this week. I had some technical issues actually upgrading my systems this week, and so there will be another one next week. But for now, let's move on to my interview with Sarah McLaughlin. Enjoy. This is Gray, and I'm here with writer and script consultant Sarah McLaughlin. How you doing, Sarah?
I'm doing great.
I'm so thankful you could come on, because I do think you have a lot of wisdom to share, particularly with regard to fellowships and consulting in general. We'll get to that a little bit later. First, it's always fascinating to hear about how people broke into the industry. So why don't you take us back to where you grew up, when you first got the writing bug, and how you broke in?
I grew up in New York, just outside of New York City. I had a strange upbringing. I actually wasn't allowed to watch television growing up. So I think that ultimately led to my fascination about this medium that I was like forbidden, and it was the forbidden fruit. So and so I don't have any references to 80s and 90s TV shows. I wasn't allowed to watch any of them. So my parents thought like a lot of the subjects were a little bit too fresh because we come from an Irish Catholic conservative family. So so then when I was in high school, we got a video camera, and so I was obsessed with creating little movies or recording every moment of my life on the cameras. And that kind of inspired my interest in television. I was allowed to watch the news. That was the only thing I was allowed to watch with my parents. So I thought maybe TV news would be a great place for me to go. And I went to the University of Colorado I went to the School of Journalism, and I got my bachelor's in journalism. And I then moved out to LA, and I just started kind of working my way up. And I didn't really know anyone or have any connections, but you just kind of get out here and start meeting people. And I ultimately got a production assistant job on the last season of Home Improvement.
Oh, cool.
Which was a Tim Allen show, ABC. And that was I knew then and there that I was in love with television. I wanted to be around the creative process. I wanted to be on the set. I wanted to be making people laugh. So when I initially was I want to work in television, I didn't know necessarily what I wanted to do. And so it was through my experience as a production assistant that I got more clarity in what everyone's roles were on a TV show. Yeah. And it narrowed down for me exactly that I wanted to be a writer. I mean, I'd done journalism in college, but I thought maybe I'd be a producer. I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of people, I didn't really know what any of the titles meant. There's a ton of different titles, and you're I don't know what any of these mean. And so while I was a production assistant, I really used that time wisely to like talk to everybody at Disney Studios, from like the marketing person to writers to the producers and production, and it really helped me narrow down like that I really wanted to write and I wanted to be part of the creative process.
And you read a lot of scripts as well at that time. I
read a ton of scripts. Not only did I read for the development people in the company, so all the spec scripts that would come in for people who wanted to be writers, and I did that more for research. I wasn't, being a consultant for anything, but and then I would read every single draft that came out of like the new script, and I'm not sure how much you know or your listeners know, but during the Monday through Friday production week of a sitcom, there's constantly new drafts coming out, sometimes an entirely different draft from the draft before that's going to be filmed that week.
Wow.
So it was kind of an exciting time to be able to read all those scripts and learn and see what, who changed, why did this storyline change and why is this joke changed and, why is this person no longer in the scene, and kind of analyzing the scripts and why the writers made the changes they did.
Mm-hmm. And so how did that lead in, or did that lead in to, I understand you did a fellowship at Warner Brothers, the writer's workshop there.
Yeah, so I was really lucky to get into it's a pretty exclusive workshop, the writing fellowship. And what happened was, so once I decided that I was going to be a writer, I took a class at UCLA and I wrote my first spec script. I wrote a friend. And I would love to pull it out right now and read it, because I'm sure it's much like most people's first scripts. They're, a horror show.
Uh-huh.
But you got to get that first one done. And then I started writing other scripts and submitted to the fellowship. And the first year I got an interview, but I didn't get in. And then the second year I got in. And it was a great 10-week, kind of like a class. Like you would go for 3 hours every Wednesday during lunch, and they would have current showrunners and creative executives at Warner Brothers come in and speak to you and talk to you about the process. And for the writers, they would come in and talk about what works in a writer's room, what doesn't work, what they value in story or reading spec scripts. And it was a great learning experience all around, from like even some of the creative executives about how they have to give notes to the writers, keeping in mind the Warner Brothers brand and the network brand and all those factors that go into, writing. It's not just, I want to write a script and put it on the air. There's so many other factors that come in from all different levels.
So you've finished this 10-week course. Now, I understand a lot of the fellowships try to place you in shows. Was this one of those kinds of fellowships?
It was. Yeah, it was. It was one of those seasons that they didn't have many shows. Like I just kind of,
no.
I tend to have bad timing in my life. It's been a story of my life. It's plagued me, but it was one of those years that Warner Brothers didn't get a lot of shows picked up. And at the time, I was a writer's assistant on that 70's show, and they had given me the opportunity to write a script on my own, to be produced for the show. And so I was kind of on that path, and I was thinking I'd get, hired on there. And ultimately, I ended up getting hired on there. So I'm glad I actually didn't get staffed on a show. But yeah, it was just happening one of the seasons at Warner Brothers. Now, typically Warner Brothers has a ton of shows, but it was like that one year that like they had one show picked up,
And so you were there because you were an assistant around 2001-ish, and then you were there till 2005, 2006?
No, so I kind of took a different path. So in 2001, they created a new show called That 80's Show. And so they put me on as a staff writer for that, because they didn't have any room at the time on 70's Show for a new writer.
Oh, I see.
But they wanted to keep me in the family. So I was a staff writer on that show. That only lasted 13 episodes. And then it was canceled. And once it's canceled, everyone goes their separate ways. And then I went I got a job on What I Like About You, which was at the WB. Which is now the CW, and it was a half hour with Jenny Garth and Amanda Bynes. And over the course of that job, that whole season, we were picked up for the whole season, and I wasn't very happy there for a number of political reasons. I don't really play the political game, and I wasn't a fan of how the politics were impacting me. I was like, I just want to write jokes. I don't know what's all this like drama going on. I don't want to be a part of it. So the showrunners of that 70's show were like, why don't you come back over here? We just got picked up for 3 years.
Wow.
And so I was like done. And so I started over back there, and it was just like a great homecoming. And I love all the writers on that show. It was like a big family. I mean, having a show that goes on for 8 years, it's like, and all the writers pretty much stayed on, the entire run.
Wow.
That it's just like you become this big family, and all the writers that started as single men in the beginning, 8 years later were married, had kids, bought BMWs, bought houses, and they used to live in crappy apartments in West Hollywood, and now they have, a great huge house in Encino. And so it's fun to see that growth, because as a TV writer, you don't generally have that, that opportunity that often to be in a long-running show anymore.
Mm-hmm, for sure. And you worked with Kristen Newman on that show too, didn't you?
I did. She's one of my great friends.
Oh, cool. I just had her on the podcast a few episodes ago.
Oh, she is. I'm sure you loved her energy. She's awesome, and she's one of the most talented writers I've ever worked with, so I've been really lucky. She had a show. I'm not sure if she talked to you about this, but she had a show on ABC that was picked up. Mm-hmm. She had me come in and write on that. And it would only last, I think we were only in pre-production for 10 weeks before it ended up not going forward. But yeah, I think she's one to watch in this industry for sure. And she's actually working on another pilot now with Craig DeGregorio. Yeah, who's so funny. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very cool. So that 70's show, you were there, 8 seasons, so you were there kind of the back half-ish? Yeah. And then it was South Park. I did. It was very brief. People were like, oh, you went on I guess they go on my IMDb, and I don't even know how it got up there, but It was a very brief South Park experience. What I learned from that takeaway is that I'm not seriously disturbed enough to work on that show for a long term. And that's really all I can say about my experience on South Park. Well, I mean, it's pretty neat. I mean, that 70's show and South Park were two very different kinds of comedy, and you were able to see both worlds. Totally. And what was really cool was, I'm a fan of South Park, as is everyone. And these guys actually, they were in Colorado, at the University of Colorado when they were older than me, but they were still there when I was a freshman. And so what's cool is, like, in the writer's room in 70's show, we would pitch jokes in the voice of Fez. So someone would put on a funny Fez voice, or someone would put on, Kitty's kind of high-pitched, funny voice. But when you are actually hearing Matt and Trey pitch the joke lines in the actual voices of the characters, because they're the ones who do it, it was like chills just went down my spine talking about it, because it was like mind-blowing. It was like, how do you do that? Like, you're so scarily talented. Wow. Yeah. Very, very cool. Yeah, it was really cool. Well, okay. Well, why don't we pause a little bit and maybe focus on that 70's show, on the room a little bit, and tell me sort of how an episode was constructed from start to finish on that show. I can talk to you about one of my favorite stories, how we kind of came up with it. Mm-hmm. It's a story about one of the writers on the show, Dean Vitale. He pitched this idea. I guess his dad, I may not be remembering it precisely, so I don't want anybody calling me going, that's not how I said it, but I think it was along the lines of, his dad got drunk and came home from like an auction at like the VA center or something, like, and so so he told the story, and I guess the guy had won. His dad had won something that he didn't want. Like he was like, I don't want this, and so that became a story about how. So he told this story in the writers' room, and we turned that into a story that Red goes out and gets drunk at, the VA or the VFW or whatever the veteran association that he belonged to. And there's like an auction, and he wins a canoe. And he puts the canoe, it's hilarious. He puts the canoe on top of the Vista Cruiser, which is the car, and brings it home for Eric. And he's like, Eric, I got you a canoe. You don't ever say I don't get you anything. And he was like, we live in Wisconsin. It's winter. What am I going to do with this canoe? And then Red gets really angry at Eric for not wanting this canoe. And then Kelso ends up stealing the canoe and doing absurdly Kelso type things with it. And it turns out to be a really funny story. But a lot of the times it's like, a writer comes in, this funny thing happened to me when I was a kid, or one of my friends, or my little sister is going through this right now, and pitches that idea. And then you take kind of pieces of it and weave it into the stories that our characters could, legitimately experience, and then kind of then take it to like a crazier level, like with the Kelso taking the canoe and attaching it to the back of his truck. And as a multicam, I'm guessing it had pretty crazy hours. What's so strange is that it did not. Oh, really? So it was really there are a few multicams out there like Will and Grace and Raymond and 70's show that did not have crazy hours, which just goes to show you can write a multicam and not work till 6 a.m. But we had a motto, I think it was along the lines of like, that 70's show for 8 years, speed over quality, like for 8 years straight. But no, we had a really good group and who knew the characters really well. and we were out of there sometimes at 4:00 in the afternoon.
But you still had the same kind of schedule, right? Like you start the week writing, and then by Friday you got your live taping.
Yeah, so Monday was the table week, the beginning of the production week. You had rehearsals all week long, and then Friday we would tape into the evening. That was, of course, the one night where you worked late, but it was kind of like a fun environment. A lot of shows, a lot of multicams actually during tape night, it's like they, are constantly rewriting jokes if the audience doesn't laugh, and they're like, pulling their hair out. All the writers are huddling after scenes, trying to make a joke funnier because the audience didn't laugh. But I don't know if our jokes are funny or we had drunk audiences. I don't know, but we did very little rewriting on stage. Yeah, we really lucked out.
So looking at your IMDb, after South Park, you did a TV movie, Single with Parents?
No, that was, I don't know why it's listed on IMDb. I saw that when I was sending it to you. That's Kristen Newman's pilot. Single with Parents.
Oh, right. Kristen told me about that. It was because it was produced, but it was never aired as a series that they called it a TV movie.
A TV movie, yeah. So she put together this great room of really fun comedy writers, and we'd written like 7 episodes, I think, and ABC ended up pulling the plug. So before we even started, I think we were like a week away from shooting the series. So that was kind of a crazy situation, but that's just part of the business where you go to work on a Wednesday and they're like, you don't have a job anymore. And you're like, what am I doing with my life? Which is always great right before the holidays, to have that happen. But yeah, so that was Single with Parents.
Okay. And after that, there was a little bit of a gap on IMDb. There was a short, The Tweetmonger, which you also acted in, and then it comes to Drop Dead Diva. So maybe tell me a little bit about that time.
Yeah, so that stretch of time was I wrote a pilot for Paris Hilton on MTV. So a lot of times you have like periods where you're not on staff, but you are selling projects and developing and writing, and you're just kind of having to keep generating new material, even though you're not going into an office every day. So it's just something you have to get used to. But I wrote a pilot with Paris Hilton where she was a superhero.
Oh, really?
And and also Stan Lee was attached. I think Stan Lee has this thing where he basically tries to turn everybody into a superhero. He did it with like Pamela Anderson. He did it with Paris Hilton, but MTV ended up not producing the pilot. And I think he was doing it with Arnold Schwarzenegger before all that nonsense went down in his personal life recently. But it was a really fun opportunity. It was like one of my first pilots that I wrote, so it was a really unique opportunity to work with like a big star or a big, a personality and write that. So that was really fun. And then I also sold a pilot to Sony that I wrote. It was like a half-hour, single camera about a girl who goes back to her hometown and, has to. I didn't really reinvent the wheel there, but a girl who goes home and has to deal with all the people that she grew up with who still live in the town and have never left.
And that sounds a little bit like Heart of Dixie.
It does sound like the Heart of Dixie, actually, but mine was in the half-hour form. But no, it's based on when I went back I guess like Christmas of 2007, the writer's strike was like, we were deep into the writer's strike. Yeah. And I went back, and my sister had just lost her job. And so we were like in our childhood bedroom that we shared, and she was like, "Oh my God, wouldn't it be funny if like the two of us had to move home like in our 30s, like moving in with our elderly parents in this small town that neither one of us live in?" And so I was like, "That's so funny! Oh my God, that's my worst nightmare. I'm going to write a show about it." So it's basically like, that experience because my town is so small where everybody, I go home and I know every single person who still lives there because everyone I went to high school with now is like the townspeople.
Very, very cool. Yeah. Sounds fun.
It's frightening. It's a frightening place.
Yeah, cool. And then came Drop Dead Diva. So why don't you tell me a little bit about being staffed on that show?
Yeah, so I had met on that show the first year it came out, and they were going to make me an offer, but then who knows what happens with that kind of stuff. And so it didn't happen. And the second year they met with me again, didn't make me an offer again. And so last year they finally were like, they just called and made an offer. And it's such a fun show, and what I love about it is, first of all, it's a way for me to kind of stretch my writing skills. It's an hour long, and it's a legal dramedy, and so having not gone to law school, I had a really steep learning curve on how to, like construct the scenes and what you need to say. And there are lawyers on staff who can help you. They're TV writers also, but they're lawyers, and they can help you craft the dialogue and the language and in a realistic way. But I had the real joy of writing an episode this past year where it was two girls wanted to go to prom together. They're a lesbian couple, and their high school said no. And, Jane, the main character, takes it on and fights for the civil rights of these two girls that are being violated, inspired by the Constance McMillan story in Arkansas back in 2009. Yeah. And so I wrote the script. We got great guest cast in that week. So we have Wanda Sykes ended up being one of the judges,
wow.
Clay Aiken, Constance McMillan, the actual girl. Wow. She was an extra. She played a featured extra as a bailiff. Amanda Bierce. And so it was just like this amazing cast with this amazing story. And Lifetime ended up, they have an Outfest every summer in Los Angeles for the gay and lesbian community, their film festival, and it was, featured, my episode was featured a week before that it was supposed to air, that Lifetime sponsored it, which I thought was so great.
Wow.
And they had a panel afterwards. It was just and it was written about all over the press. I just was really proud of it, and I'm hoping to win a GLAAD award. You might be talking to a future GLAAD award winner.
Very, very cool.
Reading some of the comments and seeing and meeting a lot of these people who've been infected by this type of hate and bigotry, it's probably one of the proudest things I have in my professional career. I was so proud of that episode and being able to start that conversation in families throughout the United States that, it's okay to be different. And I don't know, I just loved it. I'm really proud of it.
Very, very cool. Well, congratulations on that one, and hopefully there'll be even more accolades coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but so does that take us up to the present? You're still on that show?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, maybe we can change gears a little bit because I know that you also run a website called tvscriptdoctor.com, and I read through the website, and I really like a lot of the things you say there. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
I offer services to up-and-coming writers or current writers to read their scripts. I give a really thorough analysis with plot and tone and the world and characters. After reading the script, I give them a really thorough analysis. Not only do I give a whole overview of the script, but I go page by page. I'm page 1, fix this, page 2, and I'm a little bit neurotic about it. I get a little bit too passionate about what I do. But and then what happens is I get on Skype, or if someone's in Los Angeles, the writer's in Los Angeles, I'll sit down and meet with them for an hour, and we'll go over the notes and we'll answer any questions. And in a lot of ways, we create a little bit of a writer's room, a mini writer's room where the two of us are trying to come up with ways to fix it, and we just kind of spitball and kind of work off each other. So that's really fun for me too, because I like working with up and coming writers. And then what happens is they'll do a rewrite, and then they'll send me the next draft, and I will do written notes for them based on and so and what I like about it is you can give your script to a friend, you can give your script to an agent, but it's really a writer who knows exactly what the motivations are, what makes a script work, what makes it doesn't work, and so you really want to kind of turn to another writer to be able to give you that feedback. And because we do it every day, and other people read scripts, but we are actually in the war together, in the trenches. I really enjoy doing it because I just feel like a lot of people who don't have my experience have a lot of questions, and they just don't know. Maybe they're from Florida, and they've been thinking about being a TV writer, and I just I would love to talk to somebody because I didn't have anyone to talk to when I first started out. And so I get emails from people in the UK who want to get a summer internship in Los Angeles, and I will actually email them back and have a conversation with them. So I just like to kind of help people because that road, I had to forge it myself, and it was hard. And so I'm happy to kind of reach out and help people get to become a Hollywood writer if that's their dream. Mm-hmm.
So is it predominantly pilots, or would people also bring you their specs? What kind of stuff would they bring to you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I read the gamut. I read pilot scripts. I read spec scripts. I read features. I have a client in Florida who I've read this feature 3 times. The rewrite just keeps getting better, and every time I read it, I get more excited because I'm like, oh my God, this is getting there, And so it's just really fun for me to see the evolution, as I'm sure it's fun for them as well. Mm-hmm. I read, if a person's going in for a pitch and they want me to look at their pitch, a lot of times if you haven't gone into a network or worked with a production company, you don't know what a pitch looks like, and you don't know what elements that are, required essentially to, in a pitch. And so I will look at your pitch, and I'll, give you. I had one client who gave me a 3-page pitch like a month ago, and I gave her 5 pages of notes. Wow. I'm sure she was like, what? But, and last week, actually, I did something, this is like the craziest thing, but I have a person who hired me to listen to their stand-up comedy routine. And I worked with them. And it was like hilarious. It was like a Thursday afternoon. My apartment was bright as day. There was no 2-drink minimum. I was like, what if I don't laugh? Like, this is really awkward. This is not a comedy club setting. And we worked for 2 hours, and we just like went through all of her jokes and, kind of created like her persona, because she's just starting out and trying to figure out who she is, like who her voice is as a comic. So that was really, really fun. And I'm going to go see the routine next week, or no, on Thursday. So,
very, very cool.
Yeah.
And well, it makes sense because TV is written collaboratively. It's not written in a vacuum. Things are written in a room. The stories are broken in a room, and as well, when the scripts come back to the room, they're punched up together with other writers. And so it doesn't make sense when you're trying to compete with that, with your spec or your pilot, that you wouldn't also collaborate.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think I even say that in my blog. It's like, that's how we all learn, and that's how we make our script better. And I think a lot of people are under the impression, and this is typically a new writer mistake often, is that, I wrote my script, it's done. And it's like, it's never done. It always can get better. And I've worked with writers, even professional writers, who will, like, if they have 10 words on the page, they will fight for 9 of them, and you're just like, oh my gosh, it's part of the rewriting process. We're all here. We're all trying to help. Next week, my script's on the chopping block. The next week is another writer's. Like, but it really does improve tremendously. I mean, I think if you even read like a Harvard MBA study about, like the ideas, actually, I think there's like, I won't go into details, but I think there's like all these studies where if you went out to the wilderness and only had 5 things to survive, would you survive? And then if you went out with 4 other people and had those same 5 things, would you survive? And the group is more likely to survive than the person who's out there by themselves. So that's kind of how I think about it.
Yeah. Very, very cool. So as a script evaluator and creative consultant for the Warner Brothers Writers Workshop and the Disney ABC Writers Fellowship, that must have taught you some things.
Yeah, no, definitely. When I started reading the scripts, I kind of got a better understanding of like what people tend to miss when they are writing a script, and then what really kind of stood out to me as something that really was an element that was like vital when you're having a pilot or mimicking someone else's voices in their first spec script.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so obviously, in the nature of anything like this where you're evaluating scripts, there's a reject pile, there's an accept pile at a bunch of different stages of the process. And I imagine, just like with anything, there's a bunch that are just nowhere near what they need to be, but there's probably also a bunch that could almost be, but still end up in the reject pile. I imagine that you could work with those and get them to the accepted pile. What do you think?
Of course. I think writers need feedback. So any script that's about, I forget what the scoring was for the ABC Disney Fellowship, but there were some that were like 2 points away from going into the second round. And so those scripts, absolutely, like if someone like myself, like a script consultant, could come in and just kind of go through the script with a fine-tooth comb, which is what I do, and give them some feedback, they could get the script to where it could get into the next round easily. I mean, when you're a TV writer, you give script notes on a daily basis. So whether that's like one of your friends who has a script, or you're sitting in the room and every single day you're like flipping each page, like page number 3, I think this needs to change. Page number 8, this joke would be better. Page number 12, let's make a cut here. And so you're doing that constantly as a TV writer. So for me, I learned a lot about my craft just reading those scripts, because I could see glaringly obvious things that could be changed and made that script better. And so had that writer, made those changes, they would have been moved into the next round.
Mm-hmm. Well, could you give me some examples? Like, what would be, say, for instance, a particular thing that might make a script end up in the reject pile? And by contrast, what is something that stands out in a good script?
One thing that I've noticed time and again, and when I'm working with clients, they'll totally admit to doing this, because I'll be like, did you do this? And that would be, they had a great idea, and they had some characters in their head, and they just sat down at the computer and just pulled up final draft and said, fade in, and started writing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's very obvious that the story, usually you have a great beginning and you have a great ending, but the middle you don't have. You haven't figured it out. You're like, I'll figure it out when I get there. And so I think not having taken the time and in a thoughtful way putting together an outline and broken the story up as, because most TV scripts, you need an A story, a B story, and like a C runner. And so it's obvious that they haven't sat down and said, okay, this is the A story, this is the beginning, this is the middle, these are some of the things that are going to happen in the middle, and then these are the events in the middle that lead to the end. And doing that for each of the story and gone through with a fine-tooth comb and been really thoughtful about it. And I think, on Drop Dead Diva, we do that. We do a 18-page story document.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the entire A story all in one piece broken up, and then B story all in one piece, and then C story all in one piece. And then the next stage is the outline, and then we intermingle all the stories, in the scene. And so that's the way that you can really, take a look at your whole A story and say, okay, this works. And so my advice would be, because ultimately I will work with writers and be like, did you not, do an outline? They're like, no. And then to have to go back and do it while you're already married to a lot of pieces of your script is a lot more challenging and takes a lot of time. And so the thing is, at the end of the day, at some point, you're going to have to do it. It's just a matter of when you do it, and if you do it beforehand and before you get into the script, it's going to be so much less painful.
Mm-hmm. Well, and no television is written in a vacuum.
No. I mean, on 70's show, we had 13 writers, and we, went through it scene by scene, and we would put up note cards, and each note card was a different color to indicate the story. The A story would be pink, and that note card would be put up, and we'd break it out on a cork board, and there's also dry erase boards that we use on Diva, and so, you have 13 people contributing on it, so writers need feedback. That's what I'll always say. And, writers know what is missing and what needs to be in a script, and so you should always turn to another writer to kind of evaluate your story. Even in an outline phase, send it to somebody who knows story and to say, what do you think? Does this work? I always do that. All my friends do that to me, even in the outline phase, because you can catch problems that can be easily resolved there, that cannot be resolved, that will take a lot more work to be resolved when in the script.
Yeah. Well, and it's ironic that so many people who are trying to break into the industry, they're writing pilots and spec scripts, and they're really writing them like features. They're not writing them like the TV process that involves so much feedback and so much accountability.
Yeah, I mean, any spec script that I've written or any of my friends written, that even if I'm writing a spec script on my own in my office, I always have like 3 writers look at it at various stages, and I have different writers who, in my head, I have like, this person's going to look at the outline, this person's going to read the first draft, this person's going to, read the second or third draft, and this person is just going to give me jokes, and everyone does that. And so I think it's a really important part of the process, because you would never like put a pie in and then take it out halfway through and be like, I'm going to serve this to everybody. You never want to give your script to. I would never give a script to my showrunner. I mean, even Josh Berman on Diva is like, I want other people, once you finish your draft, I want the other writers to look at it. And so it's just a way to make it better. You're making the product better, and why wouldn't you want to put the best product out there, And so on the other end, when I'm evaluating these scripts, whether at TV Script Doctor or if I'm just reading it for the fellowships, one thing that stands out to me that like delights me to no end, because I just love writing, is characters. Yeah. So if I'm reading a script and I can tell that it's like hit it out of the ballpark, if I can cover the name of the character and read the dialogue, and just based on the dialogue, I know exactly what character is saying it, because the person has created a character with such a clear point of view. That's a huge sign. Yeah. And that's someone who's been very thoughtful in their character development and in their dialogue development. And so like for on Friends, you could go through that script and you could cover every single piece of dialogue and flip through that script, and I know a Monica line. Like, I know that character so well, I know a Chandler line. And Chandler is the only character on the show who can say this line. And on 70's show, same thing. A Kelso line is not a Fez line, it's not a Red line, it's a Kelso line. And if I cover that, name of Kelso and I read that dialogue, I know that that's a line that's been written for Kelso. So if you can go through your pilot, or you can go through your feature and do that, or have a friend do it, you've created a character that's really like crystal clear in the minds of the audience that they are very familiar with that character, and you've done a really good job doing that character development. And And I get really happy when that happens, because it's just like this character has such a clear point of view.
And actually, they're just like you might do in a feature. When you're adapting stories, that's often something you have to do. You take multiple characters and you maybe just combine them together to make one. If you have 2 or 3 characters that are that are sort of speaking in the same voice, maybe there could be just one character, and then create a different character that contrasts that one, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. If you have 3 characters who are like basically the same person, you want to just combine those into one, and then use that real estate or use that character real estate for a different character with a different point of view. Like, I always say, like, I hate people who show up late for things, but and my mother really hates it. And then I have a friend who always shows up late. And so each one of us have a different point of view on the simple action of showing up late. And if all 3 of us had the same point of view, that's not an interesting conversation, you know? And so, like, you have just steal from your friends. I steal from Thanksgiving dinner. Every person has a different point of view sitting at that table. Yeah. Steal from Christmas. Steal from family gatherings. And that's where unique character traits really manifest themselves. And I steal from my mother is in every single one of my scripts. Like, her voice is so unique, and her point of view is so different than anything that I've ever seen out there, that I'm always incorporating her voice into a character. So yeah, character creation and really and not wacky point of views. Like, not like, I'm going to jump off a bridge and not have a parachute. It's like that moment of the being late. It's so relatable. We can, all the audience, everybody can relate to that, and everyone has a very you don't talk about it necessarily, but everyone has a point of view on people who show up late for things, and those are real moments that happen to us on a daily basis that the audience can relate to.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I know Seinfeld was an amazing show at taking just regular, ordinary stuff, and yet it was so relatable. Yeah,
no, absolutely, exactly, all that stuff. That's why I think it identified so much with people, because it's so small. So I don't know how well Seinfeld would be appreciated now, but it's those small moments of waiting for a table, or having someone not write you a thank you card, or, you know, having someone shush you in the movies. It's like those things happen to us on a daily basis, and we all have opinions about it. We may not be vocalizing it, but we all have thoughts about it. So those moments are so relatable, and that's what I love about characters who kind of like verbalize what they're thinking.
Very, very cool. Well, and so I mean, one thing I love about what you're doing now is, and it's not that there's no script consultants in TV, but there's certainly a lot more in features, and not as many in television. And so somebody could go to your website, say you're writing a spec or a pilot, and you've got a bunch of breakdowns of different services that you provide there at tvscriptdoctor.com.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that I can work with you. So, and it's not just, I also work with feature writers. I have, like, a person in Israel, you know, who's, like, English isn't even their first language. So for both sides, I do everything from, like, I'll read your script, give you really, really thorough notes, basically overall notes, like the tone and character and plot and stakes and structure, and then page by page, I will literally go through and be like, page 1, page 2. I mean, my notes are, like, 5 pages long. So, and then what I'll normally do, if you're in Los Angeles, I'll meet up with you at a coffee bean and spend an hour with you and go through those notes. If you're somewhere around the world, I hop on Skype and we have great sessions. And it's really kind of fun, because as we're going through it, we create like a mini writer's room where we like kind of bounce ideas off of each other, and then we build on each other's ideas. So it's just kind of fun, because I love constantly being like creating and kind of being in a writer's room and having that feeling. And then normally for one of the packages, then you go off, the writer goes off and rewrites the script, and then I read another draft, and then I give written notes, kind of, again, thoroughly going through it, and not verbal, but just the written ones. And you get a really kind of full sense of like what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be, be taken out or tweaked or completely rewritten. But I also do, I think another thing that people don't know a lot about is like pitching. So, until you get into so I also read people's pitches, and I give them notes on that. And I think until you actually have gone through the process, you don't really know what elements or what pieces of the puzzle need to be included in a pitch. And so while everyone has a different TV show idea, pretty much everyone pitches a show the exact same way. I mean, I've worked with DreamWorks, I've worked with Sony, I've worked with Krasnoff Foster, I've worked with so many production companies and gone into all the same networks, and, like NBC and CBS and all the big ones. And every single production company, doesn't matter which one, you have that same format. So there are elements that need to be included, and there's ways that you can kind of organically tell stories And so I'll go through someone's pitch and be like, this, you need to have this, you don't need to include this. And so I had one person who sent me a 3-page pitch, and I gave them 5 pages of notes.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure she was like, what? And then also, crazily, last week I have a new client who wants to be a stand-up comedian, and she came to my apartment and did her stand-up comedy routine for me at like noon on a Thursday. And again, I spent 2 hours with her, and I just worked with her on kind of like perfecting her voice, because every comedian has like a voice, and like who are they? What box can I fit you into? And then her jokes and her delivery. And so I kind of, while I originally was just going to do TV scripts, I kind of run the gamut of everything. And then I have another service where I read your outline, and so you pay for like an outline and a first draft, and I read both and give notes on both. So it's been really fun. I love doing it. It's just, I love working with new writers. I love kind of recreating that TV writer room, and I love talking about TV. So when I get on Skype or I meet someone in person to sit down and go through the notes, I love talking about what works and what doesn't work in TV, and pulling examples from shows that work and don't work, and it's just really fun.
Very, very cool. And all the contact information people need is on your website, tvscriptdoctor.com. And also you're on Twitter. I know that
because Twitter.
That's how we found each other.
At TV Script Doctor.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, I know we've gone to the end of our time here, but thank you so much for taking the time, and also just for offering this service to writers. I know that the TV writing group is not a very big one, and so it's nice to know that there are a few really talented people serving that group of writers.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I also have a blog where I talk about being a TV writer. It's at WordPress, so I think it's like tvscriptdoctor.wordpress.com.
Very, very cool.
And I kind of comment on when I'm out for the development season. I'll talk about pitching and sometimes how hard it is to create a character with a unique voice. And then when I'm on a staff, I talk about my episode filming. And so it's just a really fun place to kind of get more information about what it's actually like to be a TV writer.
Very cool. Well, I wish you the best of luck in everything you do, and have a great, great holiday.
You too. Thank you so much. I had so much fun.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing great things from your blog, and also on the new shows that you'll be a part of in the coming years.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed the interview with Sarah McLaughlin. Don't forget to check out her website, tvscriptdoctor.com, and also follow her on Twitter at tvscriptdoctor. You can follow me on Twitter, at Gray Jones is my handle. And actually, speaking about Twitter, don't forget to go to tvwriterpodcast.com for the TV Writer Twitter database, where you can find over 900 TV writers who are on Twitter. There's easy links to follow the whole list, as well as you can search by show and find the TV writer you'll want to contact on Twitter. There's lots of other great resources on the website, including a huge database of free television scripts, pilots, Bibles, the works. Make sure you check out the resource links that are on that site, and the handy DSLR page if you're interested in shooting your own short film as a feature piece to break into the industry, or if you want to shoot webisodes, anything else, make sure you do check out that page. There's lots of great resources there. You can find the podcast at blip.tv/TVWriterPodcast. You can find it on iTunes, and certainly at the website at tvwriterpodcast.com. Have a great writing week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hosted by Gray Jones, the TV Writer Podcast is brought to you by Script Magazine and ScriptMag.com, the leading source for script writing information in print and on the web.